Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear sisters. So, you've decided to homeschool your 6-year-old, right? You made the official decision, you talked it over with your spouse, you decided school is a no-go, you're not sending them to grade 1, now they're at home, but it's official now, right? Now they're not little toddlers anymore, now it's no more just, play it by ear, now it's official, and you are feeling overwhelmed and don't know where to start and how to set up your day or your structure or your curriculum or anything like that. Well, I'm here to give you 3 tips, inshallah, how to start homeschooling your 6-year-old and what are the main things that really matter and what are the things you don't have to worry about, inshallah, right? My name is Salma. I'm a mom of 6. I've been homeschooling for many, many years. 3 of my older kids are actually homeschool graduates. Alhamdulillah, they finished their homeschool journey. They're now in university or have graduated from university even. And I have 3 more kids at home, and I'm here to help you build healthy Muslim families, inshallah. All right, so the first step that you want to start off with, and again, I'm assuming here that you've done your homework, that you looked at your legal situation, that you've kind of done your homework in terms of, is homeschooling legal in your country? Are there any loopholes you can use? What is that situation? And you figure that out. That's the assumption, right? Now, if you have not done that, then you have to kind of go back. That's step 0, right? Figure out the situation of homeschooling in your country, right? So step number 1 would be to figure out your why. And this is super, super important. Like, why are you homeschooling, right? And it has to be something big, right? Like, what's making you keep your kid at home? The society, everybody's can't wait to send their kids to school, and here's you keeping your kid at home. Why are you doing that, right? What's your reason? Is it an Islamic reason? Is it an emotional reason? You don't want them to be bullied. You want them to learn Quran. You want them to be advanced in math. You want them to be able to play whole day. What is your reason, right? Like, what is your approach to homeschooling? And this is super, super important. And if you're not clear on the why, keep digging deeper, keep writing it out, have a journal ready, and you just kind of list all your reasons why you want your kids to be homeschooled, because when things get tough, this is what you're going to go back to. This is what's kind of, that's going to keep you steady when everything else feels messy, right? Like when you kind of start doubting your decision, right? And your homeschool will actually look very different from anybody else's homeschool. And that's the beauty of it. But it will very much depend on your why. So for example, if you want your kid to be academically advanced and you want them to graduate early and, to do all these kind of things, that's going to require a certain path. But then if you're more into like, oh yeah, I want my kid to enjoy their childhood, I want him to play, I want him to climb trees, I don't want him to suffer from the academic pressure, then your homeschool is going to look very different, right? So your why is incredibly important, right? Like you have to figure that one out. And a lot of sisters contact me and they say like, oh, but they're scared of where the society is going, and they're scared of what's happening in schools and things like that. Fear should not be the only motivator to homeschool. You should look at like, what are your goals for your child? What is it that you want your adult children to be, and what kind of environment do you want to create in your home, and how is homeschooling going to help you with that? So the why needs to be a pretty big reason, because the path will not be easy. All right, so you need to figure out your why. The second thing is to think about, what do you want your child to know? And again, this is when people ask me about curriculums and what to follow and things like that. I want you to think of your family culture and of your ideas about education and what is it that you want your child to know. So as I give the example of like, do you want him to sit some exams early? Do you want him to become a doctor and an engineer? Do you want him to be running a business? A lot of people are now like saying, hey, don't worry about university, just have a startup or something like that, right? Do you want him to speak a lot of languages? Do you want him to be into sports? Do you want him to memorize the Quran? What it is that you want him to know, right? And so don't think in terms of curriculums and don't think in terms of, but think of qualities that you want your children to have, right? So what kind of spiritual goals do you want for them? Do you want them to be praying? Do you want them to be practicing Muslim? Do you want them to be visibly Muslim, right? Like wearing hijab or having a beard as they grow up, right? What kind of emotional goals do you want them to have? For yourself as a family, do you want them to be kind and, honest and humble? And what kind of academic goals do you want them to be? Readers, or are you more focused on maths and science and you're just kind of like, hey, the AI in the computer world, that's where it's at, right? So you need to make that decision because your homeschool will be based on that, right? Like you should homeschool in a way that makes sense for your family, right? So if you are a STEM family, most likely your kids will be doing coding courses and programming and AI and things like that, whereas another family might be just focusing on reading books and actually not allow any screen time for their kids, right? Or you might be a family that pushes languages to children and say, I want him to be bilingual, trilingual, I want him to do X, Y, and Z, read this many books, take him to the library. And yet another family might be heavily into sports. They were like, we want them to pursue this really heavily. So it will all depend on what you want your child to know and what you consider worthy knowledge, right? And so it's really, really important to kind of clarify that for yourself, because that will inform how you go about homeschooling that particular child in your family, right? And our goals will not be the same. I am much more place-based maybe than other homeschoolers. I don't push for exams. I don't care if they sit A levels. I don't care if they are graduating early, right? I am much more interested in slowing down, in having them have a childhood where they can play and where they can just relax, right? Now, that does not mean that the other way of homeschooling is wrong, but you have to figure out for your family, what is it that you want your child to know, and what are the subjects you think are important for them to function, right? So when you know that, then you figure out that's the third step then, how can I teach this to my child in an age appropriate way? How can I teach this to my child in a way that a 6-year-old is ready to learn? And so you have to be really kind of putting some effort on here in this point, after you've done all the efforts in your why and in your which subjects kind of thing, what's important to you. What's an age appropriate way for a 6-year-old to learn? A 6-year-old is not going to be able to sit for a long time. A 6-year-old is only going to be able to pay attention for a little time. So how can you spread it? No matter which subject you decide to teach. If you decide, I want my homeschool to be Quran heavy, that's also going to matter, but the child is still going to be 6 years old, right? Doesn't matter if you want to make it math heavy, that child is still 6 years old, right? So you have to look at resources that are appropriate for the age of your child, right? Like, you'll have to do some research over here. You have to kind of say, okay, how can I do this? Like, can I expect them? A lot of people expect children to teach themselves in a way that, like, here is a book and, do that. Now, that is possible with, older kids, but a 6-year-old might still need you to read them the stories. The 6-year-old might still need you to sit with them and help them color and, help them figure out the letters and whatever that is, right? So you have to figure out what's age appropriate, and less is more at this age, okay? Less is more at this age, because there's no need to overschedule them and push them. And I've noticed this in homeschool circles, there is almost like this badge of honor to kind of mention how early kids have done something, right? Oh, they have done this, they have finished this book, or they have done this exam. Or early is not necessarily better, right? And so be careful here, just not to overschedule and make it overly academic, right? Because this might not work for that child and might not even be developmentally appropriate, right? Which brings me to my last point, which is kind of a bonus point, right? And which is always, and you've seen me mention this before, is to look at the child in front of you, okay? And so when you figure out all these things, let's say you figure out you want him to know multiple languages, you want him to be active in sports, you want him to do all these kind of things, you have to look at the child in front of you. What is their energy level? What kind of personality do they have? Maybe you want to put them in, so many activities, but they're more on the introvert side and they don't enjoy it, right? Or on the other hand, you might have somebody who's very, very extroverted and who's dying at home, who doesn't want to just be sitting at home alone with the notebook and, the online class or the online resources or whatever fun things you have. They want people, right? And so you might have to investigate homeschool activities and other families in your area, right? So you have to look at the child in front of you and kind of say, what is their interest? How can this be informed? And the homeschool relationship will work beautifully if you pay attention to each other, right? Like, if you pay attention to the child's wishes, and then the child is kind of looking, we are mentors in this relationship, right? A child will often not know all the knowledge that's out there. So we are there to sort of set the menu, right? But we can't shove it down the kid's throat, right? So think of it as like serving a beautiful spread, putting all kinds of things on the table, but also looking at the child's reaction, how can they eat this in small bites? Is the presentation appealing? Is the stuff, what we're trying to serve them, is it tasty, rather than just shoving it down their throat, right? And so again, look at your child. So to recap, how do you get started with a 6-year-old? You think of your why. You come up with any number of subjects or areas of knowledge that you want your child to learn, and then you can see what is child appropriate at this point, and does this fit my child's learning style? You're not just homeschooling any 6-year-old, you're homeschooling your 6-year-old, right? And you know them best, and that's probably why you've chosen this path, with something in you wants the best for this child, right? And so inshallah, these are the steps you can follow, and then the curriculum, the actual textbook or the actual things are very easily figure outable, because you have your principles to guide you. And then if it happens that it doesn't work out, that your kid is saying, hey, look, this math book is boring, or I'm not enjoying it, you can always go back to the drawing board and look at your principles and look at your why and look at the importance of it. And then you can say, okay, all right, maybe your child, maybe you're big into languages, but your child doesn't want to learn a particular language, right? Maybe they want to learn another one. So you can be flexible, right? But you will have your why as a philosophy guiding you in this process, inshallah, right? And you can figure out the daily things on your own. A lot of times when homeschoolers ask me questions, and particularly moms of young homeschoolers, and they ask how to get started, one of the caveats I like to give is that as a homeschooler, you have to be able to figure out things on your own, right? And it's lovely to ask for guidance, and it's lovely to ask for mentorship. And I've done this certainly over the years, and I've benefited from looking at the research and other people. But at the end of the day, you are the one who has to make the decisions for your family, right? So you have to have a certain level of I don't know, a courage, I guess, to just kind of pursue this path, even if nobody else is doing the thing. And so if you feel strongly about something in your homeschool and nobody else out there is doing it, it might not even be wrong, right? Or, you have to try it out for yourself. So you have to have a certain level of confidence as a homeschooler. And if you feel like you're not quite there yet, try to take small baby steps. And again, go back to your why. What are the things you want them to learn? And how is that going to look like with young children in the mix, inshallah. All right. I hope this helps, inshallah. And I'll see you in the next video, inshallah. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.